Hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Tron. I am Brent Robinson, and I'm joined today by a big crew. Let's start with Sean Fogenberg. Sean, what are you drinking?
I've got a couple of things here, but I guess the most fun is a Two Town Cider House tropical cosmic crisp cider with passion fruit hibiscus and cosmic crisp apples.
That sounds
Jesus.
amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty tasty.
This
Is
is
It's
there a
It's
paragraph
also
break
very
in
long
there?
range.
it's it's 8% and it tastes like it's not.
dangerous, dangerous. We also have Steph Chen. Steph, what are you drinking?
After last week of again the bar beer, the blonde beer with some honey taste was pretty good. Also 8%, and it's quite late here, 8:11 p.m. So
Beer o'clock. I'm gonna call that the
Yeah.
yeah,
Barbie beer. That looks like it said Barbie on it. Barbie beer. There it is. It's
no, it's
blonde. Steve.
bar of the week, but it's a pretty local beer.
It's not pink enough to be the Barbie beer.
Could be the
No.
Babar beer.
It's the right color for a honey beer, so
There you go. All right. That is also John Keenan. John, what are you drinking?
I've got a proper cup of tea. At least I think it's proper. I use 2 bags of American tea, which is always questionable. And for my mushroom, I've got the Odyssey. What is this? Orange fruit, dragon. I need bifocals. Dragon fruit and lemonade.
Awesome. And we also have Craig Martin. Craig, what are you drinking?
So I'm just Moosehead Green. So the local mass market lager.
We also have Steve Pritchard. Steve, what are you drinking?
I think I'm glad Steph was keeping up the kind of European drinking, and I've channeling my inner Becca, and I'm sat with a cup of herbal tea at the moment. I'm intrigued by the double tea bagging though, John.
Well,
you
you look
just
at the
not-
quantity of tea in
Oh,
America
hang on.
is like tiny, tiny.
I've had this with coffees in America that when you get free refills, it's a good job because you need to have about 8 to get them to the right strength of coffee that you
Totally, right? You need that pot. Yeah.
So I think Brent, Chris, and I are all on the same page with that.
I can't wait for this.
From
I can't wait to hear
Steve's
this.
comment there.
Can't wait to hear Brent's transition on this one.
I've got a story about cider, but that's for after we record, I think, as well.
Oh, got a story
Oh
about tea
man,
bags.
he's got something worse than a double tea bag.
I could think of something that is worse than a double tea bag, though, Brent. That's this
There you
Oh, we
Oh,
haven't
dear.
even
Chris,
started.
I
We're
don't
already
think
off
we've
the
introduced
rails.
you. We've jumped far ahead. Chris, what are you drinking?
Yeah.
Oh man,
I
I'm
purposely
about
came
to.
to you last because I know you raced.
I did race. I'm cooked. I don't even know where I am at this point. I'm stuffing a recovery Guinness down my throat just to make myself feel anything. Um, but
Not a Miller Lite?
I don't have any Miller Lite at the house at the moment.
Ah,
Drop the ball on that one, yeah.
so good. And I actually had blackberry bubbly, but I actually finished it and put it in the bin like 3 minutes before we started. So whoops. That's the way it goes. Although just before, did anyone else see the vice president on Colbert? And she had the beer. She had a Miller High Life, the champagne of beers. She said that was her favorite beer. I thought that was
No,
That's
interesting.
excellent.
Yeah, she literally called it the champagne of beers, which
that's
it's not a can,
divisive.
but
Boy, that's going to be tough.
Could you imagine if that's what cost her the election?
Oh.
Anyway, man, speaking of things that probably taste really bad in your mouth, Bigfoot Hills was probably really
Should we just start this whole thing over? Like,
I think we have broken Brent and we need to turn him off and on again. Just too many people.
Oh.
Chris, you actually did Bigfoot Hills, though. Tell us, your review was you had cramps on your cramps.
my cramps had cramps at the end. I don't know, like I had 6 bottles of water with me. I had 1 bottle with 90 grams of carbs that I downed at some point. I don't remember finishing it, but um, and yeah, when I stood up on that final Hillycomb reverse at the really sharp end, the part that you hate, Steve, like my legs were not feeling it. I don't know if I need to get out of the saddle more on these 2 hour indoor rides, probably. But yeah, maybe changing position. But yeah, I cramped heavy in those last like 10K. It's long, it's a slog, it's intervals, it's chaos because you got groups blowing apart and coming back together and you don't know what's going on behind you and uh you don't know how you do until the end. So it's fun. It's a lot of fun, but it's also miserable at the same time.
So I think like people might have done this a few times. It's definitely like 2/3 of it has definitely been in ZRL. I think we finished at the top of Titans Grove Com in ZRL a couple of seasons ago, but it's attritional, isn't it? So you
That
start
was Steve. That was race 1, season 1 of ZRL.
yeah. Well, I think it's been subsequently as well, hasn't it?
I don't know if we finished in the same spot.
It's
Like
attritional though, isn't
45
it?
kilometers.
You start in the desert, you hit what's it, Titans, then Hillycomb, then the volcano, then Titans reverse, then the Zwift Hillycomb reverse, and that's about your 60Ks done.
Well, but then you
Get
have
the
to
finish.
make it to the desert banner
Mm.
after hilly reverse,
And
which is painful.
everything on this is fastest through points, so
Yep.
it should chill out mostly in between. Was that, well, is it hard to tell? Was everybody just blown apart after Titans Grove and nobody could tell, Chris?
No, it definitely played out like that. But yeah, the tricky bit is like you've just got groups blowing through you, like cross category. I'm trying to think back and remember where it all happened. I think we had people blown by for sure on the volcano, obviously.
Hmm.
So it's like sometimes you're having groups come up behind you, like in those segments where you should be chilling out, and you got to go like 3-2 to hang on because that's your only chance to like have a good segment time on the next one. So you got to dig deep when you weren't planning on it. Um,
Well, yeah, and they're like for the most part, I mean, Titans Grove forward is very draftable. Definitely want to be in the group for that one. Obviously, it's the first one too, but it's not super steep. Hilly forward is steep but short, right? It's like a 2-minute punch, so probably still in the group theoretically. Volcano is
mhm,
very draftable. Want to be in a group for
mhm.
that one. You're looking at 8-minute type effort after you've already done those other two. Titans Grove reverse. It's pretty steep, but
Draftable.
definitely
Draftable.
draftable.
Yeah.
Yep.
4%.
Yeah.
And then Titans or Swift KOM reverse, like the first bit's steep, but you'll hit it with speed, and then you're gonna want to catch on to a group for the
Yep.
rest of it after that. So
Yeah, numbers is the name of this game. So I definitely had it where I made a conscious decision to drop back off of the group, like lose the wheels, because I noticed there was another C in that group who was holding like 3-2 just to stay on the wheel of a B. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. So I cut that and just dropped back like 30 seconds to hang on to another group that was going a more reasonable pace on the flats.
And it does look like the sprint does count on the intro. Is that
oh,
or
right,
on the
and
lead in?
It should, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Pardon me, I forgot about that too. So
Yep.
yeah, you got a
Yep.
30, 40 second sprint to start. And it's FTS, so it's not even like you can dog it and just catch
Yeah, you
the
don't go
end.
through the other sprint, do you?
No.
No. So it's just that sprint on the lead in, and then Titans, Hilly, Volcano, Titans reversed, Hilly reverse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm taking a recovery week.
I mean, it's
I think
such a long course.
yeah,
It seems
that's the
like you
hard
need a
part.
lot of people to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly the same thing, John. I think like it's one of those courses where even just tagging along with a random rider from a different category for half of it's going to be sort of quite morale boosting that you're riding with somebody else at least.
Yeah.
What was the finish time, Chris? Somewhere in the 2 hour range?
157. I just looked
Probably.
at
There you go,
157.40.
157.
Nice.
Most of the C's did it sub 2 hours, although interestingly, Kelly, who came third, has done it in 2:05. So 7-8 minutes slower, but has obviously hammered the primes.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's two D's who've done it in 2 hours 23, 2 hours 25. So
Oof.
That is a long, lonely race. Yeah.
Guess if
Yeah,
you're the
looking
D's,
on
at least
Zwift
you got
Power, I was following because I was watching Matt's stream. Yeah, there were like 3 people on Zwift Power in the Ds, and I think one dropped before halfway. So yeah,
Oh,
that's a lonely race for those guys.
tough. Well, it's the
Yeah.
last week of HSRL, so if you've been in the series, get out there, get on it. I mean, inevitably, that is how we end these series. So don't nothing to feel sorry
Oh,
about. We just got to get out there and do it.
shoot. This is the last week. That means I'm not going to be able, like, unless I get out and do this, I'm not going to be able to complete the club challenge.
oh, you better
You
do
didn't
it
do that.
then.
Oh, come on
I-
out. It's
I
only
did
two
Oh.
HSRL
hours.
last week.
Join our cult.
That,
Mm,
yeah, bike Tron is fine. Pinarello with
Pinarello Dogmoth
almost
F
anything on it.
probably.
That's what I did, yeah.
it's not worth a bike change, is it? None of the hills are.
No, no.
Nope, nope.
I think if you're solo on any of those hills and are strong C to middling B, somewhere in that range, the all out arrow with a disc is actually better,
Yeah.
even solo.
Sean, you need
No.
to come out because there's only 8 points between us for in the mighty battle for 11th in the league. So yeah, get in a race.
Good. All right. I think that wraps up for HSRL. Herd beginner racing.
Are we TikTok this week?
Looks like Sand and Sequoia's on the
San
companion map.
Sequoias, yeah. Yep.
Nice
Very
course.
good. Yep. Herd climbers gambit, Chris. This is final week of the trick or treat, or are we still going?
Trick or treat
Second
is
week.
all October long.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the
Did you
schedule
miss
here.
the
It's only
photo
for.
of the pumpkin on the front of the bike?
Listen, I'm
Which
looking at the
weekend?
official schedule you give us. It only goes up to this week.
It runs all October long, so this is weekend 2, and we are in France for Petite KQOM, which I
Yeah,
think we've
don't.
talked about this before. Is it TT bike for some people? I think it is.
yeah.
Maybe.
A's and
Yeah.
high B's.
I mean, it's 2.7K at 4%. I'm just opening this real quick to see what the speeds look like. Okay, so if you're doing it in under, let's call it 6.5 minutes. 6.5 minutes is 15.3 miles an hour, 24K. I think if you're doing it faster than that, it's probably TT.
Okay. Thank you, Sean.
Good.
Also, I prefer your route going to doing Lorraine routes going to the intestines, because in the official Zwift series they do, I think, Caspa, so you have to do the long way around as a warm up. So
Yeah, right? Ain't nobody got time for that, Steph. Let's get this over with.
Yeah, I
That's
guess
shit to
don't
do.
be put off by the fact it shows Loren. You're not doing the full Loren for the race. I mean, you can keep
Unless-
going.
You can.
You can. Bad
If you
time
need a
series,
real
whatever.
good warm up for HSRL, you'd be very warm by the time.
Yeah, Chris,
I was about
have you considered doing a climber's gambit where it is Lorraine, you do it's your time on Petite KOM that counts, but you have to finish the full route.
He's not
I
trying to
have
go in
now.
races no one will sign up at.
We could do combined time of the entire route plus your petite climb time.
That would be
Hey.
good.
Loren is responsible for
Greg has
me.
left the chat.
I'm
I think
back.
Loren's responsible for me having a ridiculously high 5 second sprint time. I think we did an HSRL there where that sprint, the Piticom segment counted, but you had to finish the race, and I'm not doing anything on Piticom, so I absolutely nuked the sprint. Just had this outrageous like 5 second sprint power for a while.
Yeah, and for the crazy people out there, tomorrow's Tour de France Flamme Rouge stage is a TTT on Lorraine for the entire segment.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, any race on Lorenz a TT anyway, so let's be honest.
Well, I
Yeah,
guess,
and
yeah, that's true.
And tomorrow is Quad Quest as a final green stage for them.
Why didn't I do Flamme Rouge? Who can say?
Hey, one of our teammates did the ladder race with us earlier at like 6 p.m. UK time, hour and a half later, so about 40 minutes after our race finished, he hopped into stage 7 of Flamme Rouge to do another 40K. One of our teammates. Dedicated people.
Credit to that guy. All right, Mountain Goats is. I can't remember what Matt said.
It's still Road to Sky on the companion, but that could be changed.
Or not.
Maybe it's the entire month of October just go to Sky as a.
No, he's been changing it. Like he did have a thing, but
I thought we had a schedule.
it's in the. Oh, I just messaged the groups trying to do a search. He posted it in the group chat, but he hasn't posted anywhere else.
Okay.
Is the answer to that? Anyway, we'll come back to that if we find it, maybe. Stampede. We are resetting the whole series after last week's of it. ZRS change in the middle of the week and everything else. So we are back to London 8 reverse. And then everything's just going to flow down from there again. So we're not redoing the whole schedule and everything. It's just going to be all from there. So London 8 reverse again. Man, I did that last weekend and Bart Vandelin sure humbled me. There's nothing quite as depressing as like you think you're like biking pretty hard, doing your like 4.3s up Fox Hill, and Bart comes by doing like 5.5 to 6s, and then does that the whole race for like 27 minutes. It's like, good Lord. Anyway, he did wave at me, so that was very kind of him.
Surely it's easier for him because he's not doing it for as long though. So
It's an excellent point.
Yeah.
It is. That is the math on that. And then we got Bullseye, Craig.
So I cut a lap out after complaints from this past week. So it's classic 3 laps, 4 sprints. So it's a bit of a long lap, but it's there's a couple spots through the lap where you got to stay on. So it's an interesting one. I've had
it's
really
classic,
good
the
race.
one where you go down the mile round, wiggle back, and then up the hill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you stay on the London side. Yeah.
But the lead-in bit tricky, isn't it?
Well, I mean it's long, and then you get the little bump.
The
Yeah.
hill. Yeah.
And it totally works with ZRS.
Yeah, so so I will be messaging James and asking him to turn off ZRS scoring for our points races. So this past week, my score went down when I won the bullseye because we forgot to message him. Actually, say forgot. We didn't know to contact him to turn it off. So all good.
Mountain Goats is supposed to be Climber's Gambit, but don't don't quote me on that because if it's still showing Road to Sky, that was supposed to be the last week of the month. Last week was supposed to be 1.5 laps of elevation evaluation. So
So what course is it meant to be? Sorry.
Climber's Gambit, the Climber's Gambit
Ah,
course, the one that goes the sprint and then the Titans Grove and then
And then
up
Epic.
Epic.
Reverse.
Epic reverse, pardon me.
Mm.
So maybe that's what we'll get. All right. I think that's the week in herd racing. News of the week is
Yeah, the biggest news is that ZRS, the Zwift Racing Score, is now live for all races. It is well, I guess not all races, considering ZRL is doing their own thing. But for most or maybe all public races, it is now the way you're categorized. And if it is a scratch, well, and I guess Craig just mentioned, like, if you don't let them know to not use your race to update your ZRS score, it is also the way that you're going to get scored afterwards. There are some interesting little tidbits that have been dropped on the Zwift Insider deep dive on this. I think that the most interesting piece is something that we had speculated on, and that I was. So the seed score is built from your 10-minute and 30-second power. And your 10-minute power might actually vary quite a lot, like what your maximum could be. Your 30-second isn't going to change that much. Like if you can do a really good 30-second sprint, you can probably do that really good 30-second sprint or close to it off the couch. Like Craig disagrees, but like physiologically, the difference between a D who, like, I mean, there are Ds who can come off the couch, do 10 watts a kilo for 30 seconds, and then, you know, if they work their way all the way up, maybe they can do 12, right? Like physiologically, it's a lot easier to maintain your short power.
I think also there's the without being
let me
without
finish, because the point here
Okay.
is that the 90, so that 30-second and 10-minute power, if you're just using 90 days, which is what they had been doing, you might, I haven't done a 30-second max effort in the last 90 days. I have in the last year, and they are actually saying that they might institute some threshold so that if your 90-day power falls below that threshold relative to what you've done over the last year, they're going to use the year data in setting your seed score rather than your last 90 days, which I think is really important for people who, for example, take the summer off and then come back to racing, to actually set a seed score that might be somewhere close to where you should be.
Yeah, and I think the other piece is it depends on what you're doing on Zwift.
Yeah.
Because there is a bunch of people that are, you know, primarily training for, you know, long course steady state events, and then occasionally do the odd race. And, you know, they rarely do a strong 30 seconds. And then there's other people, say me, that does almost entirely points races on Zwift. So, yeah, my best 10 minutes might not be my best 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I do enough races with goofy climbs that I'm probably fine, but yeah.
Does that mean once you do one good hard 30-second effort, you're automatically going to be scored and you're going to be in a different category?
Not
necessarily.
necessarily.
Is it like an average of 3 or?
No, it's one.
It's one.
Yeah, it's your best, but it's only if your best gets better by enough that your seed score goes above what your floor can be. So if your seed score goes
Okay.
goes high
Above
enough
where you're
that your
racing.
that your current score is below where your floor can be, it'll bring you up to the floor, I think.
Okay.
Also checked on the companion app to be sure ladder races are also also not in a ZRS enabled.
And
Because
no,
they do
they're
their
they're
own
not
thing.
races, effectively,
That
are they?
seems,
They're meetups. They're organized that way.
yeah,
Uh,
no, I know, but that it seems like that's a huge pile of extremely good data
Yeah.
that you're ignoring that you could
Because
choose
they
to use if you wanted. Anyway,
because they are basically scratch races.
there's
I think
scratch races, yeah.
it's a technical challenge, isn't it? I mean, this is we've
Yeah.
kind of danced around the like points races aren't yet included, which is frustrating because Zwift Racing.app does include points races because it can take the ordering that's given by Zwift Power and then rank the race that way. So you can change your metal category based on the bullseye, as Craig mentioned. Zwift Racing Score is only going to work on scratch races. That's with a slight asterisk of if you do a really good power in a workout, that might affect your seed score, which might affect your Zwift Racing Score. But the main way you'll change your Zwift Racing Score with a fairly steady state of 10-minute and 30-second power is by winning races or losing races. And those races have to be scratch races or TTs.
Yeah. No, I was talking with our good buddy Ed Zwift, and he did say that points races in game, or like points in game, is on the work plan, but it's not first up on the work plan. So
I think this is there've been some interesting complaints, and I've seen some sandbagging discussions recently with the current categorization system. And I think one of the interesting ones perceives that like, oh, I can't do that for that time. And I think what happens is people get too attached to watts per kilogram in Zwift now. So uh, a good example from a while ago, I did a TTT with Ernst when I was 70 kilos and he around 100 kilos, and he flew past me at 2.6 watts per kilogram. And I was having to push a lot more than that to stay on his wheel because he's putting out nearly 300 watts. And I think people need to remember on Zwift, it's not just watts per kilogram that matter, it's also watts, particularly on the flat. So if you're and I think this sort of some of those people who are Ds who could stay there, I think this ties into those type of riders as well, who are saying, well, oh, I've only got there because I've got a good sprint. Your good sprint, like we can both do 10 watts a kilogram. For me, that's like 750 to 780 watts. Like you're doing over 1,000 watts. You're going to win that sprint with us both doing the same speed because you're faster. So I think it's going to make people race differently. I don't know how much you guys have done some of the races with ZRS so far. I found them actually like the groups that you end up in seem really tightly like gathered, if that makes sense. They seem really well grouped. It feels a lot more like a crit race should, which is you make the hard bits hard, and when you can't do the hard bits hard anymore, you fall out the back. So it's like it feels like proper crit racing. It like I'm quite sold on it. I think it's really good with the asterisks of like the slight problems, which we hope are solved by next summer. Of like several of our races are points based races and will be outside the system. So it seems good.
Yeah. And if you look at it, because as a mainly ladder guy, we've seen that the medal scoring, which is ZRS is sort of derivative of. If I look at our last few races, if you look at the scoring, at the results, and what is predicted, they align pretty good. There are outliers, but in general, if somebody has a higher Philo racing score, he's probably going to go do in the race, and you see it's quite very consistently. So I expect the same indeed from more ZRS based on that as well.
So this might be a transitional question or problem, but when you go and you look at the results, like the race just this morning that Chris was in, the results are displayed in A, B, C, and D, but you go into the pen as a whatever, 350 to 520 or whatever the ranges are. So you're not really racing
So
those
But you're just
categories.
looking at Zwift power results, right? In Zwift,
Wait,
those aren't the results.
So
They
it's
don't
still
see
going to
that.
show up as for now at least, it's still going to show up as A, B, C, D, E for the 5 pens in Zwift Power.
Okay.
But those pens aren't, the old watts per kilogram bands. They are whatever the criteria was to get into A, B, C, D, E. Also, as far as the Chris's race today, HSRL was requested for an exception for this weekend to finish off the series.
Okay,
So it
yeah,
still used the old categories this week.
So it's a transition piece,
Yeah.
right? But going forward, is Zwift Power going to show those bands, or is it still going to say A, B, C, D?
It's just going to say A, B, C, D, E for whichever pen you were in.
Okay.
So if we want that information in Zwift Power, I think we can put it into the race description, but I think that's the only place it's going to land for now.
But you'll see at least like the number of at least for the herd races that we use, like scratch races and whatnot, or even points races, where you see if you finish third, you have 450 or 448 points or whatever the number is. And then you're going to compare those with everybody in your power band or in your ZRS band.
Yeah, I think the way it's confusing. If you renamed the pens 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
right?
It would
that's it. And effectively pen 1 could be Zwift Racing Score X to Y, and pen 2 is Zwift Racing Score Y to Z. The problem I think everyone faces is that we're now able to set those up however we want. So pen 2 could be effectively what is now category B, but could also be like some of A's to some of C's because the event organizers set it really wide. So I think that the take home message is if you're in pen 2 and your Zwift Racing Score stays in the criteria for pen 2, you'll be racing a load of other people that are in pen 2. You'll click on B and Zwift Power, you'll see the results of the people you race for that series. So that won't change. It's just going to be a bit like of a mental juggle to find where you are in the results. It's quite interesting to look at because you can see when you look in Zwift Power now, you can see I've done some events where I'm in a Zwift Racing Score pen, and I can see some people who are Bs, some that are Ds, some that are Cs on their old categorizations. It's just interesting to see like where people have landed with their powers to date, really.
Yeah.
I think you really have to remember that the things that are in Zwift Power is not what Zwift Racing Score sees. Like Zwift Racing Score only sees whatever you see like on your finish screen at the end of a Zwift race, or if you go into companion app, right? That's all it sort of sees, for lack of a better expression. What you see in Zwift Power that's got A's and B's and all those other scores, Zwift has that information is not being fed into ZRS at all. The only thing that's going into ZRS is your 30-second power, your 10-minute power, and your finish place at the finish line in a race.
No, I get that part. I guess I'm trying to think, for my prestige and my ego, like how am I going to know that I'm coming in 37th in, herd winter racing? Well, that's probably all one category anyway. But how am I going to know how I'm doing in herd climbers gambit relative to the people in my ZRS band?
Yeah.
So you would work out what your ZRS band is, by which pen you join. So you'd be that recommended pen in the companion.
So if you're the third pen from the top, let's see.
Yeah, you check the C results.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So the ABCD isn't really ABCD anymore. It's like pen 1, pen 2, pen 3. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm currently pen. Well, I was pen D for normal Zwift Racing Score bands. I've just been promoted up to pen C, where I'll be a bit at the back of that band.
Yes.
I think that this is something that bears repeating because some people might not quite understand exactly how the racing score stuff works. It does work similar to the velo scores, which again, they might not understand how that works as well. But like the basic idea is it's not just you get a certain amount of points for finishing well. You have to finish better than people who are ranked similarly or higher than you. No, Craig says no.
That doesn't appear to be the case. The top half, looking at results, it really looks like the top half goes up, the bottom half score go down. Doesn't matter who you were racing.
So they made a worse system than velo ranking.
See, that's going to be interesting in HWR.
It really is.
The thing, yeah, I don't think we can tell is the honest answer at the
We
moment.
can't, because they're not giving us the magnitudes of how much stuff is moving, so it might just be coincidence.
Can you
on
see
the few
before
I've
and
looked
after
at.
yet as well?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
mean,
no before and after. There's no. Yeah.
The FAQ does specifically say that field quality is a factor.
So field quality is a factor. So yeah, so field quality is a factor, but yeah, who you beat and who you didn't beat isn't. It's field quality. It's more like the old USAC stuff, or the old Zwift PowerPoints.
That is wild. That's a choice.
It is a choice, isn't it?
Well, it's just interesting to me because I mean the whole theoretical underpinning of this thing is essentially if 1,000 people and each of their scores are unique from 1,000 to 1, you win 1,000 races out of 1,000, and the guy with 1 should win 1 race out of 1,000, right? Like that's kind of the hypothetical.
I don't know if that's
or finish last or whatever. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of the hypothetical underpinning to it, right? So that a score of 500 roughly belongs to someone who's in the middle, and 690 is you're a 70% racer, right? So if you end up with a bunch of other 690s, you're not going to win everyone, but you're going to be competitive against those people. But if you end up with someone who's a 600, you're going to beat them, 9 times out of 10, however all that math works out. But so if it's not going to take into account the fact that a guy who's sitting at a 180 all of a sudden finishes within 10 seconds of an A in a race, probably not accurately accounted.
Doesn't take into account of, I mean, I guess it does with powers slightly, but you could, in theory, finish within 10 seconds of an A and have enough people in between you and that A for that not to be worth anything.
Although presumably change that as your critical power figures would adjust. And you can only that whatever your sort of results-based score is, a results-based adjustment from your seed score can only knock your score down 50% from what your seed score is. Like if your seed score is 1,000, no matter
we're back.
So we'll all do like a clap for Sean to edit. And I was talking about how your seed score can only your score can only drop to 85% of your seed score depending on your results. So, I think that's how they limit that. You'd get if you're going hard enough to stay with the A's, your score is going to move up in any event.
I remember sending you guys a Basil Exposition GIF from Austin Powers in the week of like it's one of those things that it's best you don't think about it too much, and that goes for all of you at home as well. I think what we do know is that it's going to apply for scratch races and TTTs. It's going to be more ranking based, which should make the racing closer. There's bonuses for podiums. They're looking at ways to extend that time so that kind of people who go away from the summer and come back in the winter, kind of it's recorded some older data. I think the kind of what could be a good thing is we've heard from our good friend at Zwift that kind of points-based scoring, they want to get it on the roadmap, but they're not sure if it's going to go on the roadmap in the next 24 months. That's really promising because I don't think you're going to put points-based scoring into ZRS without putting points-based scoring into Zwift somehow.
Yes.
Which would suddenly be like in-game points displays and all those things we talked about, which would be very exciting. So that, whilst it may seem far away, could be a very good thing, which is cool.
Well, it is. Yeah, I mean, it's the golden ticket I've been asking for, but
We've all
Yeah.
been asking for, at least on this podcast.
I genuinely think the first of these platforms that can nail fairly decent like in-game physics with Call of Duty style or online gaming matching and results, like it has got a bit of a golden ticket, because I think the people who like racing will jump to that platform and go, it's given me fairly realistic racing. I can jump in, be matched with someone I'm equal to. I can do a variety of races, be that velodrome style, be that scratch style, be that TTTs. Like that sounds like a really cool platform, and I think that there could be quite a big first mover advantage to whoever nails that problem, really.
I think you're right. I think the limitation is going to be just to get that type of Call of Duty feeling of matchup. There's not going to be enough people doing bike racing online to get
Yeah.
there. I think that's the biggest limit, right? Like, if let's put it this way, I think like this is going to descend into some video game nonsense, but I don't know if any of you guys heard of this Concord thing that just happened. There was this game called Concord that launched on PlayStation, and then it was hitting probably about the same number of users as users are on Zwift, and it just got pulled down because it was not going to make any money. So like video games just operate at a different scale.
Yeah.
Than Zwift. So
Should we move on to there's been a new record route. I think Sean, you sent a link. The community designed route from Scotland's now available.
Yeah, so the race, this is going to be the course for week 6 of ZRL. And this is the community winning, the community competition winning course, which is Breakfast Crits and Grits. And I think the part of the course that is what we are kind of most interested in is that it will be doing 4 repeats of the Breakaway Bray. So I don't remember which direction. I think it's doing the counterclockwise, but I could be wrong. So 4 laps of that about midway through. It is there's a bunch of other rolling stuff, but you know it's Scotland, so of course there's a bunch of other rolling stuff. But I think that's the kind of most interesting part, and then finishes up the roadside of the Skur.
sorry, I'm just looking at the map. I think it's only 3 laps, and it is the reverse.
but the reverse is clockwise.
Okay.
Isn't Breakaway Bray forward counterclockwise?
Like I said, I don't know which direction it is, but it does say
Yeah.
4 loops around the short circuit, 4 times up the Breakaway Bray reverse.
Yeah.
I think Breakaway Bray forward is the
No, that's clockwise. Well, I don't know. You turn
Is it
right onto
counterclockwise?
Breakaway Bray and then turn right at the top of Breakaway Bray in the forward direction. So I'd have thought
Oh.
that was clockwise.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was always up the what I'll call the east side of the loop.
I
Yeah,
did.
yeah, I know what you
Usually
mean.
I'm sweating too
forward.
much to know at that point.
Oh, God.
I think this is a really interesting course, which I say a lot about courses, but why I think this is really interesting is you've got a short, sharp climb followed by a fairly pitchy descent as well. So there's kind of a potential to go really, really hard and gap people on that descent. Like we had that in ZRL this week. Like the epic com descent actually became a separation point for people. People sprinting the top of epic com. I have no idea how they had the energy to do that, and then getting that super tuck early.
So that's where I got dropped, but that was a trainer malfunction that I couldn't get into Super Tuck at all. So
And this is a scratch race, right?
This is a scratch race. Yeah, no points.
And it
no-
seems like it's going to get really busted up pretty good before you even get to the breakaway bray reverse, right? Because you're going up
Yes.
the Clyde kicker.
Well, you start on the
Uh,
Skur. It's gonna break up on
Start
the
on the
Skur.
Skur, and then you do right Clyde kicker, and then
Yeah. So
the
I
drag
think
up the and then
anybody
the
that makes it up the
corkscrew as
Skur
well.
together is probably gonna make it to the loops, but
Mm.
for the
But
most
then you're
part,
gonna have loops. Those are what, not even 2K loops.
yeah.
So then you're gonna have weird mashing up of groups,
Yeah.
probably too.
It'll
I mean, I
be
really like the idea. I like the idea of having these circuits inside a longer route. Like I really like that idea for that, having that be part of the race. Not quite sure this was the course I would have liked it on, but
It's going to be an interesting tester, isn't it? Because what's that? It's a 4 or 5 minute climb up the Skerb the first time, and then
less. It's like 2.5.
yeah,
Yeah, south side's
it's the
fast.
asphalt side.
okay. Oh, so that's pretty quick. Because that's going to be it. It then becomes about, as you say, those 30-second repeats. So if you've gone hard at the start, like, and you can't put in those digs, that you'll get gapped. But my thinking is 30-second power is pretty close to 2-minute power for most people, or not close, but I don't know that many people who've got really good 30-second power and really bad 2-minute power.
Yeah, I would agree with that part. That if you're able to, well, the 2-minute thing comes first. So getting over the 2-minute doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to stick with the front, but being able to do the power required to stick with the group over the repeats means that you probably were able to get over in the front. Especially since you're coming over fresh. So
Yes.
like
Yeah.
like that yeah, being able to do a really good 30 seconds that like repeated 30 seconds probably means you can do a good enough 2 to 2.5 minute. Like, yeah. Yeah, this will be an interesting one, and
So also,
I guess we'll see whether this actually affects your ZRS score.
I think, but it also sounds, yeah, thinking further, sounds also an interesting points race course where, because
Yes.
with that repeated things in the middle,
Potentially,
that's
yeah.
like 3 or 4 sprints with basically a minute, 2 minutes in between efforts, I guess, or even less.
Like for example, this would be an interesting kind of HSRL bullseye mashup where you've got the like Mario Line's been messing with what types of points do we get? It's not just
Yeah.
the FTS points. This could be one where like FTS matters on the first couple things, but it's only FAL across the repeats up the Bray. So you've got like the bullseye midsection of this race.
Yeah, it does. It
Could
does
make
have
a
a
cool
lot of
climber's gambit
possibilities.
as well, Chris. I don't know if you can add that many segments up.
We'll give it a shot. You can do lots of things.
I don't know. I don't know if it's actually available yet for um, event organizers or if it's, available to free ride. But I would assume that it will be after this race.
Think it might still be one, like I know after they did Glasgow Reverse, you had to message into the event team to get it on. It wasn't like on the public event
Okay.
organizer route.
Yeah.
So I suspect it'll be like that for a while. You're gonna have to make a special request for it.
I just checked and it's not there now.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. I just I will say in terms of racing score, just for fun story time, is I did a racing score. I did a community race this week. The guy who who led the race for 99%, did 3.6 at 366 watts, or 3.6? Maybe a little higher than that. Maybe 4.6 at 366 watts for 99.9% of the race. He just sat on there like that, like he was on a drill or something. And me and one other guy managed to go with him and just sit on his wheel across It's a Climb. This was on whatever the HDR one that went like Mayan Itza down and back around 2 loops, like Coastal Crown or something like that. And the rest of the group just spent the rest of the race mercilessly mocking this guy who's face didn't change, and then congratulated the two of us. And the other guy was much lighter and killed me at the end on Itza. But yeah, it's good fun. So that was my ZRS experience. That guy's ZRS was like 3.566, and I'm like a 620 now. So, although apparently that's because, oh, we can talk about this. Is apparently I've learned that my trainer is cheating for me, and I didn't even know it because I've got the Wahoo Kicker core, and it's been doing this silly doesn't hit 0 at the bottom watts thing. So
Yeah.
I'm getting probably 20, maybe 25 or 30 even free watts.
I
So
mean, that's anti-cheating in a lot of ways because you can't you
It
can't super
certainly
tuck.
was on that ZRL race on Tuesday.
yeah. Although after spending like another hour reading some thread about it, apparently it is giving you watts sometimes at the top. It has something to do with the momentum not accurately reading. So it's like when you're sometimes like in coast, but just those little micro coasts between pedal strokes, you're still not going, it's still registering like input into the
There
power or
shouldn't
something.
be
So
any micro coast between pedal strokes. Anyway, that's
I'm sorry we're not as efficient as you, Craig.
Brent just mashes down like one step at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so I was the same thing. I fixed my trainer, did a firmware upgrade, and the 12th attempt at a spin down worked. And yeah, so then I did my bullseye and was still successful. So
And did you super tuck?
no, because it was on fan flat, so there was nowhere to super
Oh,
tuck.
nowhere to super tuck. Because I don't know I don't know how else you test it, or maybe could
Well,
you
it just went to 0. Like I
Oh, it went
tested
right to
and
0. Oh,
my
okay.
cadence, yeah, my cadence went to 0. My power went to 0. So it was fine.
Because I actually don't display cadence in mine because I don't find that to be a useful piece of information to me. Like I know how fast I'm pedaling, thanks, but I definitely noticed that after someone said that, I went back and looked. Yeah, my power doesn't go to 0 for like 8 seconds after I stop pedaling.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've updated my firmware, but I'll do a spin down for my next race. I haven't actually been on since Tuesday, so anyway, it's well, it's just not surprising because I was like a bit like, holy crap, I can't believe I was that close to my power bests, even though my volume's been way down. So math kind of checks out, frankly. So
You know where you don't need spin downs? On outdoor rides.
it's true.
You do need to calibrate your power meter though if you're using one outdoors.
Oh, there is that, right?
Yeah, I think John's suggesting we get to the
Yeah.
suggested around the horn, which I did. I'm embarrassed to admit that it was maybe I could look back, but I haven't done more than like specifically on this, like on my main bike. I ride around town plenty, but this might have been my first like outdoor ride, maybe since San Diego last year. It's been a while. So I had an event and was like, all right, gonna go do the thing. Had to get up at, too early, get there too early. Made sure I had everything, had done some drivetrain work the day before, but hadn't tested it. Got out there. Drivetrain is grinding like mad, to the point that I had to ride up the mountain. So this was a Mount Diablo challenge. So basically 1,000-meter climb. Got there, realized I basically could only use one cog on the back without it really being annoying. So I think that my chain has stretched considerably since last year when I like last rode outside. And so it was the first time that I put the outdoor wheel on there, and this chain and that cassette were not having fun together. So I did find one cog that was fairly silent, that was 2 from the top. So like it wasn't a terrible gear to be in. But I had to ride up the mountain in that one gear with no water because I forgot my water in my car. So I just wanted to, luckily, and it was an hour and a half climb, and by the end of it, it was 90, 95 degrees. So I was really thankful when about halfway up the mountain, there was like at a marathon, there was a little aid station where people were handing out little cups of water. And there were 3 of those in that last half of the climb. So really thankful that I didn't have to do the whole climb with no water. And it was actually we were going probably slower than a lot of the runners at marathons. So just grabbing a cup of water, downing it, and tossing it off to the side before you got past them was super easy. But yeah, just wanted to ask you guys if you've got any super embarrassing, dumb things that you've done in like that you didn't have any chance to fix, because like I was 15 minutes up the mountain before I realized I didn't have my bottles.
How long do you have? I do
Any-
remember a similar experience of I'd taken bottles, but I'd sort of underestimated how many I'd need into 36-degree heat. So it's getting close to 100 degrees, right? Similarly, cycled up a local col in Geneva near where my parents live, or technically in France. Got to a point on it called Napoleon's Fountain, which is a little spring supposedly as far as Napoleon came over that pass, and basically had to stand in it for about 5 minutes. Just put my head in it. Because you know the point where you feel like your head's going to like break your helmet in half because you've got a bit too warm. Yeah, I'd got there.
Yep.
So I feel you on the overheating.
I think all of mine are less dramatic, but I used to commute a lot and I would invariably forget something. It might have been trivial like socks, or it might have been like pants. But I usually sort of had something stashed away in the office that I could sort of compensate with if it was just like sweatpants or whatever. But the worst was one day, I don't even know why I had my, dress shoes at home and I had put them just on the bungee on the bike, and I get to work and I've got one. I've got one dress shoe and 2 clip-on road shoes. So I just clomped around all day.
Pretty good one.
Yeah. John, when you say you forget pants, this is like you forget the outfit that you're changing into, or you're just riding around. This isn't like a double teabag situation. You around town. Okay.
No. There
Okay.
was a guy who would ride around without pants on somewhat regularly in the rain in the cold winter. So I don't know what his deal was, but yeah,
Probably
it was
mushrooms. Yeah.
a lot of mushrooms might have been involved. No, this is the work get up with khakis and a dress shirt kind of thing.
Okay.
I'd stuff things into the bag to change into when I got there. So yeah, I would sometimes walk around the office with bike shorts and a dress shirt on. It was a good look.
I worked with a guy who was similarly forgetful. I'm sure he'd forget his head if it wasn't screwed on. He managed to turn up one day with no socks, no pants, and no underpants. Like, what were you expecting to wear when you got into work?
I mean, I think the worst was showing up with no towel. So then it's like just little paper towels from the dispenser. That's bad news after a shower.
I mean, I forget my towel at lacrosse all the time, and then just kind of have to go home. You put on your stuff dripping wet, and you're like, "Oh, that was unpleasant." But
yeah,
Anyway.
Yep.
You're not like so at hockey. Are you just dry with your hockey shirt? Like they're nylon, so like it's not.
Yeah, you could, but you're kind of sweaty. Like you're.
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
gross,
It's like the
Steve.
thing you just took off.
And like Steve, I don't know. Like, I shower after hockey because it's disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I
All
would
that
shower.
gear on.
I mean, you've got a lot of gear on. Like field hockey, you're like
I
you're
know.
not sweaty.
More like
That,
soccer.
that yeah, no, ice hockey is that is a special kind of stink
It
that you need to get
really
off of
is.
you immediately, or else
And
my
lacrosse.
wife will not let me in the house.
Box lacrosse is like hockey, except for there's no sheet of
Yeah.
ice keeping you cool.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
Sun, which is harder than skating, and you're in a warm room temperature box, not a one that's at -4 degrees to keep the ice cold.
Yeah.
Is
Even
box
worse.
lacrosse indoor lacrosse?
Yes.
Okay.
Have I ever told you the one about the shoes on the wrong pedals at the triathlon?
Oh, no.
Yes, I think so.
I think I told that one already. Yeah.
That's a good one though.
That one was definitely my all-time favorites. I think I definitely went one time out and I packed up my little toolkit and stuff, got a flat, go to take out my CO2 canister to reinflate, forgot the chuck. So I just had like a CO2 canister that's like, now this is of no use to me whatsoever.
This is
So
genuinely the best thing about my newest bike is it's got 3 bottle cages. So
Mm.
2 at the normal place, one on the underside of the down tube.
Mhm.
And in that 3rd bottle cage lives a tool bag, like in a bottle, just lives on the bike. It's got a CO2 canister in a tube, all the bits. So as long as that is on the bike, I'm okay. I have managed to go for a ride without that on the bike. And so
Haven't we used saddlebags for that for decades?
yeah. So it
Yeah,
used to be
basically,
much
yeah.
harder. I just found you can't get there's too much stuff now. By the time you've got like tools, an inner tube, CO2, all those bits in there. I was undone by not having I think it's like a 1.5 or 2 mil Allen key on my multi-tool. Well, I do, but it's got a like L shape on it, so you can't like actuate the screw in very big turns. So you're kind of like there for a long time turning this thing. So I now have some Allen keys that live in my tool bag as well. But all you need really is Matt DeFreitas' mum and a hammer, as we've learned many times.
still the best. Just hit it with the hammer.
I do think
Yeah.
so. I for a while was riding with tubeless, and tubeless is amazing until you get a puncture that won't seal, and then you are stuck deciding between. And I've had the thing where you've only got a certain number of CO2s on you. So I've gotten it to where I thought that the thing had sealed, and then you fill it up with a CO2, ride another 100 meters, it blows again. Okay, well now I have 1 CO2 left. I know that all of the sealant is frozen in there, so I've got to take it off and put a tube in. But now I've got one chance at like seating this well and making sure I don't blow out the tube, or I'm stuck. And I have gotten stuck by not having that tube seated well enough, and blowing the tube once I hit it with the CO2.
So many euphemism possibilities there, Sean. So many.
There's a couple.
We're on.
I just say, so CO2s are great for how fast they inflate. So, race situation. Any other time, I just use a mini pump.
Yeah,
Yep.
I feel like
Yeah.
I'm an old man. Well, I am.
I've got the mini pump as well. It's just, I only had 1 tube
You're
also.
like-
Yeah.
Have any of you used
Yeah.
any plugs? So this is on a riveting bit of the podcast and probably something we should stop record for, but the plugs are really weird to use and I've had mixed results based on brand, but they can
I've
be
never
really
used one. I'm too nervous.
I I need to find wood. I've not yet had a flat on a tubeless tire. It's been 5 years.
Uh, it is fun when it happens. I think it was Thanksgiving a couple years ago. I'm riding around and I look down and realize that my whole leg is getting covered in sealant.
Yeah.
Because every revolution, the hole comes by and just sprays right on the back of my leg.
Yep.
And then solidifies, and then you've got to get it off. And yeah, that sounds great. And what's the advantage of tubeless?
Honestly, it's so
Low PSI.
Well,
pinch flats. You can run
Yeah.
far lower PSI without pinch flats. Is the
Okay.
it takes away pinch flats unless your pressure goes really low and you hit really big things.
Okay.
So I mean that's the biggest thing, and
And
honestly, they just roll so nice.
And the odds of getting a flat are way lower.
Way lower. And it saved me 2 pounds on my fat bike.
Similarly to Craig, I had a bike which I think I did about 7,000 Ks on, and I wore through the tread on the tires without ever having to touch it, which I've never done on tubes.
Yeah.
Quite cool.
Well,
any other really dumb really embarrassing stories anybody's
got? There was a time I went to the provincial championships with a tire with a rip in the sidewall.
That works.
Yeah.
How'd you do?
I came fourth.
Nice.
So I had another tire, but it was just completely not the tire I should have been running. It was very different. And it changed my gearing by a lot, which is a big deal. So anyway, yeah, it didn't go well.
I mean, I assume that Chris has some, but he's just sitting in his little picture screen there, grinning like an idiot.
What I do? No, I was trying to think back, like of all the years, all the things there's not been much, because I think one time early on in my cycling, not career, we'll call it adventure, I drove to go do a ride somewhere and I forgot my helmet. And then that always put me on like mental checklist alert every time I leave the house. Your helmet, bottle of shoes, everything charged up. So I don't think there's been like any really dumb stuff that I've done beyond that one. I think that one just kind of scared me straight.
Probably just choosing wrong turns on a gravel ride or something.
Yeah, I've gotten lost and gone down dead end trails, but hey, that's part of the adventure, right?
Yeah, I've definitely like forgotten to charge stuff up before you left. That's pretty routine.
Yeah.
I don't think I also have that many stories. I did have the same thing, as I recall, where the water bottle was on one of my cycling vacation, and one day in the morning, forgot the water bottle, was about to drink like 15 kilometers, thinking, oh, no water bottle. And I think the next thing I can get some water was like 50 Ks in. So yeah. But yeah, I heard stories about people going on a short ride. I think, oh, I don't need anything. I don't need tools. And for sure, they get a flat or something like that. And it's surprising to see with you telling me about the flats. I've done a couple of like events lately, and the amount of people you see besides the road indeed with flats, it's astonishing, because I ride tubes, but I can't. It's been a while ever since I've flatted even. But yeah.
Well, I think we'll say we're very glad that everybody didn't forget to listen to the Pink Tron this week, who's listening to the Pink Tron and who made it this far. Honestly, if you made it to this far, you are a hardcore diehard. So we will say also thank you to Steph Jen, thank you to Steve Pritchard, thank you to Chris Greenland, thank you to Sean Fogenberg, thank you to Craig Martin, thank you to John Keenan. Thanks to everyone for doing their herd races this weekend. We'll see y'all out there on the Bigfoot Hills. moo, and good night.
Night.